This is Teachable Moments with April podcast, and you guessed it, I'm your host, April. If you're a returning listener and a part of the Teachable Moments with April podcast family, welcome back. For those who are checking me out for the first time, well, hello and welcome. To everyone listening, be encouraged and look for the teachable moments that are all around us. Enjoy. If you're concerned about yourself or someone else, please call or text the Lifeline at 988 or chat online at 988lifeline.org/chat. We're available 24/7 and we're free and confidential. This is Teachable Moments with April podcast. Let's promote National Suicide Prevention Month. September is National Suicide Prevention Month. All month, mental health advocates, prevention organizations, survivors, allies, and community members unite to promote suicide prevention awareness. We can all help prevent suicide. Every year, the Lifeline and other mental health organizations and individuals across the U.S. and around the world raise awareness of suicide prevention during September, National Suicide Prevention Month. National Suicide Prevention Week is the Monday through Sunday surrounding World Suicide Prevention Day. It's a time to share resources and stories as well as promote suicide prevention awareness. World Suicide Prevention Day is September 10th. It's a time to remember those affected by suicide, to raise awareness, and to focus efforts on directing treatment to those who need it most. Hashtag #BeTheOne2 is the 988 Suicide in Crisis Lifeline's message for National Suicide Prevention Month and beyond, which helps spread the actions we can all take to prevent suicide. The Lifeline Network and its partners are working to change the conversation from suicide to suicide prevention to actions that can promote healing and help and give hope. Ask. Research shows people who are having thoughts of suicide feel relief when someone actually asks after them in a caring way. Findings suggest acknowledging and talking about suicide may reduce rather than increase the suicidal inclinations. Be there. Individuals are most likely to feel less depressed, less suicidal, and less overwhelmed, and more hopeful by after speaking to someone who listens without judgment. Keep them safe. A number of studies have indicated that when lethal means are made less available or less deadly, suicide rates by that method decline, and frequently suicide rates overall decline. Help them stay connected. Studies indicate that helping someone at risk create a network of resources and individuals for support and safety can help them take positive action and reduce feelings of hopelessness. Follow up. Studies have also shown that brief, low-cost intervention and supportive, ongoing contact may be an important part of suicide prevention, especially for individuals after they have been discharged from hospitals or care services. And lastly, learn more. Get message kits, resources, events, and more at the official website. Go to BeTheOne2.com. Go to BeThe12.com to learn more. Hashtag #BeTheOne2. How and why the 5 steps can help. The 5 action steps for communicating with someone who may be suicidal are supported by evidence in the field of suicide prevention. So, we already introduced the 5 steps in a previous segment. We're going to go into more detail. So, the first step of action for suicide prevention is ask. Now, how? Asking the question, "Are you thinking about suicide?" communicates that you're open to speaking about suicide in a non-judgmental and supportive way. Asking in this direct, unbiased manner can open the door for effective dialogue about their emotional pain and can allow everyone involved to see what next steps need to be taken. Now, other questions you can ask include, "How do you hurt?" or "How can I help?" Do not ever promise to keep their thoughts or suicide a secret. Be very honest, be very transparent. The flip side of the ask step is to listen. Make sure you take their answers seriously and not to ignore them, especially if they indicate they are experiencing thoughts of suicide. Listening to their reasons for being in such emotional pain, as well as listening for any potential reasons they want to continue to stay alive, are both incredibly important. We can't stress this enough. Incredibly important when they are telling you what's going on. Help them focus on their reasons for living and to avoid trying to impose your reasons for them to stay alive. Why? Studies have shown that asking at-risk individuals if they are suicidal does not increase suicides or suicidal thoughts. In fact, studies have shown and suggest the opposite. Findings suggest that acknowledging and talking about suicide may in fact reduce, rather increase suicidal, inclinations. Makes sense in a way. But I do understand why some people think that the best thing to do is just not to go there, and by them talking about it might bring everything to the surface and then will increase it. I understand the line of thought with that. But what they're saying here is that by you bringing it up and discussing it, or just giving a list, someone just to listen, because there's so many people out there that feel alone and they have no one just to even listen. Sometimes that's all you really need. You just need to talk it out, not necessarily advice or so forth and so on. You just want someone that's there that is actually listening, and it also helps a lot of times someone that you feel that actually cares about you and what happens to you. So that makes sense, but I can understand why some people may think that, maybe it's best to just not go there, and the person gets all upset and agitated and so forth and so on. So the next one is the number 2 for this is be there. How? This can mean by being physically present for someone, speaking with them on the phone when you can, or any other way that shows support for the person at risk. An important aspect of this step is to make sure you follow through with the ways in which you say you'll be able to support the person. Do not commit to anything you're not willing or able to accomplish. If you're unable to be physically present with someone with thoughts of suicide, talk with them to develop some ideals for others who might be able to help as well. Okay? Again, only others who are willing, able, and appropriate to be there. Listening again, so they're going to stress this, and I agree. Listening again is very important during this step. I think any step actually to this. Find out what and who they believe will be the best and most effective sources of help. Now, next question to this is why? Being there for someone with thoughts of suicide is life-saving, increasing someone's connectiveness to others and limiting their isolation, both in the short and long term, has shown to be a protective factor against suicide. Now, it mentions or references an individual called Thomas Joyner, and then they refer to Thomas Joyner's interpersonal psychological theory of suicide. Highlights connectiveness as one of its main components, especially and specifically a low sense of belonging. When someone experiences this state paired with perceived burdenness or burdensomeness, arguably tied to connectiveness through isolating behaviors and a lack of a sense of purpose. So a lot of times when people feel a certain type of way, they tend to, of course, they isolate themselves. They self-isolate along with others who just feel cut off from other people, and they are isolated in some way or shunned. Okay, this is my 2 cents to this. An acquired capability, which is a lowered fear of death and habituated experiences of violence, their risk can become severely elevated. Now, in the 3-step theory, okay, they refer to something called 3-step theory, or more commonly known as the ideation to action framework. They have 2 experts who theorize that connectiveness is a key protective factor, not only against suicide as a whole, but in terms of the escalation of thoughts of suicide to action. Their research has also shown connectiveness acts as a buffer against hopelessness, and that's another factor, and psychological pain. A lot of people are hopeless, okay? And the times that we're living in now, if you don't have a strong sense of self and a belief system of sorts, and the other things that we've talked about just here briefly, you're more vulnerable to hopelessness. But everyone can have those feelings. That's when you need to really, kind of refer to these things. Anyway, so it says by being there, we have a chance to elevate or eliminate some of these significant factors. Now, the third out of the 5 of the things in regards to this action steps for this are help keep them safe. Okay, so it says how. First of all, it's good for everyone to be on the same page. After the ask step, you've determined suicide is indeed being talked about, it's important to find out a few things to establish immediate safety. Have they already done anything to try to kill themselves before talking with you? Does the person are they experiencing thoughts of suicide and know how they would want to kill themselves? Because a lot of times when you're in that headspace, you're thinking of things, you're thinking of ways. What is the best way? You fall down almost like into like the bottom. You've hit rock bottom. You don't feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So you have all these like very dark and morbid fantasies and reenactments in your head of how you would go about doing it. And sometimes it's in such great detail. So the next thing is, do they have a specific detailed plan? What's the timing for their plan? This is what I'm talking about. What sort of access do they have to this? Okay, of how they want to do this, how they're going to let people know, their loved ones, friends, if they're going to let anyone know. There's just so many working parts to this. Now, under help keep them safe, the other question that you notice is how and why. So for this one, it's why. Knowing the answers to each of these questions can tell us a lot about the imminence and severity of danger the person is in. For instance, the more steps and pieces of a plan that are in place, the higher their severity of risk and their capability to act and carry out this plan that they have, okay? Or if they have immediate access to a firearm and are very serious about attempting suicide, then extra steps like calling for emergency help or driving them to an emergency department might be necessary. Now, they say the lifeline can always act, 988, can act as a resource during these moments as well if you aren't already sure what to do next, okay? So that again is lifeline, okay, 988. Then it goes on to refer to the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health notes that reducing a suicidal person's access to highly lethal means or chosen method for a suicide attempt is an important part of suicide prevention. A number of studies have indicated that when lethal means are made less available or less deadly, suicide rates by that method decline, and frequently suicide rates overall decline, which they've said, already. Research also shows that method substitution, or choosing an alternate method when the original method is restricted, frequently does not happen. But I would not just call that off, okay? Still keep that in mind, okay? Keep an eye on them. Even though it may seem like that, it may minimize it, but if they're intent, they're going to do it. They're going to attempt to do it again. That's my personal opinion and my experience. Okay. The method, if someone really wants to kill themselves, here we go, they'll find a way to do it. They said that's a myth. Okay, I was just talking. They said the myth, if someone really wants to kill themselves, they'll find a way to do it, often does not hold true. Okay, if appropriate safety measures are put into place. Okay, well, they're the experts. I just know from personal experience that I beg to differ. I'm going to be honest with you. I beg to differ. Okay. And I'll just leave it at that for right now. The help keep them safe step is really about showing support for someone during the times when they have thoughts of suicide by putting time and distance between the person and their chosen method, especially methods that have shown higher lethality with like firearms and medications. Okay. Now the fourth step is help them connect. How? Helping someone with thoughts of suicide connect with ongoing supports like Lifeline 988 can help them establish a safety net for those moments they find themselves in a crisis. Additional components of a safety net might be connecting them with supports and resources in their actual communities. Explore some of these possible supports with them. Are they currently seeing a mental health professional? Have they in the past? Is this an option for them currently? Are there other mental health resources in the community that can effectively help? Now, one way to start helping find ways to connect is to work with them to develop a safety plan. This can include ways for them to identify if they start to experience significant, severe thoughts of suicide, along with what to do in those crisis moments. Now, a safety plan can also include a list of individuals to contact when a crisis occurs. Why? Impact of applying suicide intervention skills training on the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, that was a mouthful, found that individuals that call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline were significantly more likely to feel less depressed, less suicidal, less overwhelmed, and more hopeful by the end of the calls handled by the counselors there. These improvements were linked to an acronym assist related counselor interventions, including listening without judgment, exploring reasons for living, and creating a network of support. Okay, follow up. How? After your initial contact with a person experiencing thoughts of suicide, and after you connected with them, the immediate support systems they need, make sure to follow up. That's important with them to see how they're doing. Leave a message, send a text, or give them a call. The follow-up step is a great time to check in with them to see if there is more you are capable of helping them with, or if there are things you said you would do and haven't yet have chance to get down, and get done for the person. So why? This type of contact can continue to increase their feelings of connectiveness and share your ongoing support, letting them know that you're there for them. You're always there for them, and be genuine, okay, and authentic. There is evidence that even a simple form of reaching out, like sending a postcard, a caring postcard, can potentially reduce their risk for suicide. Studies have shown a reduction in the number of deaths by suicide when following up when it was involved with high-risk populations after they were discharged from, acute care services. This really helped a great deal. Studies also shown that brief, low-cost intervention and supportive ongoing contact might be an important part of suicide prevention. Okay, and so then on here, on their particular website, hashtag be the one to it says, please visit our follow-up matters page for more. So when I come back, I'm gonna click on, and we're going to explore together what that is, what their follow-up matters page is. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So I clicked on through 988lifeline.org and BeTheOne2.com. They had a link that said follow-up matters. Okay, and then it reiterates 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7. Okay, in case you didn't know that. So now it goes on follow-up care. Follow-up care supports the transition of individuals who are in suicidal crisis as they continue their journey towards recovery. Follow-up is an impactful and cost-effective method of suicide prevention. Research shows that follow-up with hotline callers and people recently discharged for an emergency department or inpatient setting has positive results for both those receiving the care and those providing it. Look at that. So I just want to cut in, and if anyone's listening now, to let you know that this is Teachable Moments with April podcast, and the topic is that September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, okay? And actually September 10th is a very important day, and we are exploring some of the resources that they have through 988lifeline.org, as well as the hotline, and hashtag BeTheOne2.com, and some of their ways and resources and things that people can look out for, okay, for those who may be around people that maybe they may be exhibiting certain behaviors. You may have some kind of suspicions or worries about someone. They're self-isolating, they're acting out of character, and they don't seem like themselves, and you're worried and you're concerned. Kind of give you like a blueprint or a guideline of how to help them, okay? How to help them. The fact that you know them, if you're close to them, is going to be first and foremost because you know them, okay? And just being led by what I believe to be the Holy Spirit. I got to throw that in there. Plus the guidelines, the methods, the steps that they've given us to kind of help you and guide you, okay? Okay, so it says challenges post-discharge. This is important. Patients can face many challenges after discharge from any kind of mental health facility, okay, or any kind of care that they've had, okay? It says not attending appointments. Look at that. As many as 70% of suicide attempters never attend their first appointment or maintain treatment for more than a few sessions after being discharged. Another thing that may challenges, like we just said, are gaps in available care. Many people lack access to available resources for care or unaware of the resources that are available to them. Now, this is very, very important. A lot of people don't know, and they're not supported by their community about what kind of resources they have. There might be even in this day and age, I feel like there's still a little bit of a stigma there, even though in certain communities, okay? Yeah. Okay, the third one is lack of a support network. This is very real. Patients can experience loneliness and despair following discharge. Those that lack social supports can be particularly vulnerable. It also depends on where you live and what you're seeing. And there are a lot of communities, as they say, or areas in which they are bombarded with a lot of hopelessness. They don't, there's a lot of things going on, okay? and they are constantly seeing violence, and violence begets violence. So that's another important thing. And what's so important also is that there's a lot of areas that are considered to be, or were considered to be, nice areas that are now experiencing so many things that are just unmentionable. So then the next one is inappropriate or undefined or unidentified, care referral needs. Now, referrals from emergency departments or hospitals may not match the patient's needs. So this is important if you are, I don't want to say a caregiver or a person on the outside of this, because like I said, you know them, okay? So next we're going to look at partnering to save lives. Now, crisis hotlines are uniquely positioned to provide follow-up care. So crisis hotlines can do this. We're going to talk about the benefits of them, okay? Provide 24-hour access to staff trained in suicide assessment and intervention. They're thoroughly assessed for a risk of suicide. They can provide support. They can offer referrals, develop a safety plan, and dispatch emergency intervention if it is necessary. They also, you can connect directly with local mobile crisis teams, okay, that possibly are closer to you. They can come to your home, wherever your residency, to help give you that specialized care. Avert unnecessary ED, okay, visits, and better ensure needed ED visits, emergency departments visits, and intervene when a caller is not willing or able to ensure his or her own safety. Now, crisis centers have been shown to reduce emotional distress and suicidal inclinations in callers. Follow-up has the potential to reduce hospital readmissions and additional emergency department visits. So then they move on to say, what is the follow-up process? Now, the follow-up process has the potential to reduce hospital readmissions, like we said, and additional emergency department visits. There are many types of follow-up, and we're going to go into the top 5 of them. But before we do that, we're going to talk about, just briefly, the little information they have on the screen. Follow-up typically occurs within 24, that's the window of time, 24 to 48 hours following a suicidal crisis or discharge from an emergency department or an inpatient setting, and can be done in a number of ways. And now we're going to talk about those top 5 ways to follow up with someone after discharge. Make a phone call, okay? Simple as that. Send a short text message. Write a letter. If you're old school, write a letter. I love a good letter. I love a good card, okay? Visit at home. And number 5, send them an email, okay? Send them an email. Follow-up begins when a person enters their emergency department. Okay, so that's what they're telling us to make the distinction. And continues until they are safely back on the road to recovery. So they're giving the guidelines, or details defined. Follow-up begins when a person actually enters that emergency department and continues until they are safely back on the road to recovery. Okay, it's not gonna happen overnight. That's like with anything. Okay, so the first step underneath that is assess risk. Whether your patient was admitted for a suicide attempt, or just you suspect there's some kind of risk there, suicide risk, okay? It is critical to assess their mental health before discharging them. Very smart. Now they have a portion here where someone, maybe me, can download certain documents, okay, or checklists, or resources, if you will. So it says an adult patient with suicidal inclination or potential suicide risk. If your patient demonstrates some type of risk identified through universal screening, patient disclosure, or other indicators, because a lot of times when people do intake, they will ask you, or if you go for to see a counselor or a therapist, the first thing that they ask you, have you thought about hurting someone else or yourself. That's the first thing. That's the standard. That much I do know. They'll ask you that if you're having any kind of issues, even if you're having depression, not necessarily suicide, the intake on the phone or when you actually go to see someone, they're going to ask you, do you have thoughts of harming yourself or others? Okay. That's just the holy grail of it. That much I do know. So then it says, this decision support tool developed by the Suicide Prevention Resource Center, SPRC, can help determine whether discharge following the emergency department-based interventions may be appropriate, or further assessment by a mental health specialist is needed to make a disposition determination. Okay. Now the next one underneath this one is adult patient with suicide attempt as the reason for the visit. Okay, if your patient has was admitted for a suicide attempt, and they give, say, because they're talking about assessments, they said, or scored more than 1 on the decision support tool, a comprehensive suicide risk assessment should be conducted to determine immediate danger and to make decisions about the treatment. Then it goes on to list the SAFE and then a dash and T guide, which is obviously an acronym for Suicide Assessment 5-Step Evaluation and Triage, developed by SAMHSA, which is another acronym. And I've talked about them actually in the past. This particular organization, along with NAMI, N-A-M-I, or yeah, I think it is. But I can't remember what the acronym for this one stands for. But I am going to find out. We'll come back to that, okay? Based upon APA practice guidelines may be used to meet this objective. All right, so I wanted to do this before I forgot. SAMHSA is actually Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And if you guys want to check that out, of course, they have what used to be Twitter. You can check them on what used to be Twitter, which is now X, Facebook, or YouTube, okay? They're a branch of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and you can go to samhsa.gov to check out any resources they may have as well. They deal in various addiction treatments, programs, detox, inpatient, outpatient. If you have relapses, they invite you to call now for a free substance abuse consultation, and they are covered by insurance. So I just want to put that out there. And I want to give you the phone number. It's 877 261-2702, okay? And it's 24/7, like I said, and it's free admissions call. No obligation to enter treatment, okay? So we're talking about, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about SAMHSA, which stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and it's a branch of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And I just gave the number for that, okay? It's 24/7 free admissions call, free clinical assessment, and it's 100% confidential support. And when I clicked on their website right away, if you go to, like I said, the website versus calling, on the side, you will have like someone that will pop up a window and they'll say, "Hi, we are live and ready to chat with you now. So what brings you here today?" So there's so many options and there's so many ways to reach out and get the help that you need. So I'm looking also on here, and it says detox programs, rehabilitation. You can get individual counseling if you want to go to the next step. They have group sessions, and they also have addiction treatment therapy. They said that people from all ages, backgrounds, and ethnicities can see their lives or the lives of their loved ones harmed by substance abuse, and that's something that's very prevalent now. It was always there, but like I said, it's getting worse, and because of certain things, there's just this feeling of hopelessness and isolation, and I think that's a key component of what a lot of things that are happening today. Okay, but they are connected also to something called Zinnia, Zinnia Healing. They have a website as well that is linked to this particular organization, and it's at zinniahealth.com. And they said, why Zinnia Healing? I know I'm going a bit off track from what we're talking about, but I do feel like it's connected. It says treatment protocol. Okay, they have treatment options, which are tailored to your needs. Oh, they said spacious rooms with comfortable beds, TVs. Oh, okay. So this looks like this is something else that they offer. Wow. Okay. So this is clearly aftercare. Also, not just the rehab portion of it, but aftercare. Okay. They said Zinnia Healing offers full service, unique facilities. Look at that. Zinnia Healing facilities have a high completion rate compared to the national average, and the alumni of Zinnia Healing have high satisfaction with their treatment. Okay, I didn't intend to go into that, but that's another option if you are dealing outside of, because you could actually be going through multiple things. Obviously, I figure we all know that, but maybe I have to say that. You can be dealing with suicidal tendencies. You could be dealing with alcohol and substance abuse, among many things. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. You know how I can get off topic once something interests me. Okay, so we're gonna go back to step 2. Okay, to this for the follow-up matters through 988lifeline.org. It says determine whether to discharge and refer or admit for inpatient care. It says whether a patient is determined to require inpatient or outpatient care, it is important to begin the process of discussing follow-up care with them early on. So the majority of what we're looking at is, of course, for adult patients. And underneath this particular step, step 2, it says adult patient admitted for inpatient care and adult patient discharge with referrals. It says for adult patient admitted for inpatient care is a plan for follow-up care can still be passed on if a patient is determined to require inpatient care, whether initially admitted for suicide attempt or if risk for suicide is revealed post-admission. Okay, follow-up care planning is an essential component of any discharge plan. Makes sense, right? Even with extended or long-term inpatient stay, the benefits of a follow-up crisis care network can be discussed. Now, under adult patient discharge with referrals, they say this. For all patients with suicidal inclinations who are being discharged, at least one of the ED-based suicide prevention interventions, and they say listed in what is referred to as the consensus guide for emergency departments, should be provided. And that's a little link that you can click on. Should be provided, including a plan to follow up care. Always include crisis center hotline information with every brief intervention provided, and be sure to involve significant other or others in this intervention if present. Okay. And then lastly, for this particular segment of follow-up matters, you have step 3, and it says ensure follow-up upon discharge. Follow-up care should be seen as an integral part of service delivery for all patients, whether discharged from an extended inpatient stay or just a brief emergency room visit. Patients who discontinue outpatient care can also benefit from follow-up services. And then underneath this particular steps, which we're talking about step 3, which is the last step of follow-up matters, is offer follow-up to anyone at risk and or clearly describe follow-up care. So under that, offer follow-up to anyone at risk, it says structured, consistently applied protocols are essential for an effective follow-up program. Obtain consent early in the patient's care to ensure a plan is in place and it just flows as much as possible. Ensure the patient has a clear understanding of what the follow-up service actually entails, okay? So then it goes on to say, clearly describe follow-up care. Follow-up care provides a safety net between contacts and ensures that they continue the care, okay? So that they can reach that level, their level of recovery. And continues the assessment, okay? And continues the assessment and management of risk and inform the patient that contacts may involve, okay? So then it says mood check and risk assessment, review and revision of safety plan, review of discharge plan and upcoming appointments, and problem solving obstacles, okay? So in closing, for follow-up matters, 988 Lifeline for this month, September, is Suicide Prevention Month and Awareness Month. It says for this portion, follow-up care is more than just a hotline number. Follow-up matters. And then it says discussing follow-up care at the right time can save lives and hospital resources and support those in need as they continue their journey towards recovery. And then it has a link and it says learn more about this particular project, okay? So if you're interested in this, I'm going to say it again, I keep saying it, followupmatters.988lifeline.org. Follow-up starts here. This is Teachable Moments with April podcast, and we will be discussing some stories since September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. Now I'm going to read to you some stories from people who have been dealing with a variety of mental health issues from the website for 988 Lifeline. And hashtag BeTheOne2.com. Okay, so the first story that we're going to look at is by William F. Morris. Okay, and the name of the article is "This is What Depression Feels Like." So these are obviously testimonies. Okay, it was published April 11, 2016. So this is on their website. Okay. And it's from thecrimson.com. It's connected to this particular, it's published there, the Harvard Crimson. You eat, but you aren't able to taste your food. You try to write your paper or work on your work, but all you can do is think to yourself, what is the point? You try to get out of bed in the morning, but you just can't escape. It's almost magnetic hold over you. So you sleep, and you sleep, and you sleep. And sleep becomes your drug of choice, and you abuse it constantly. Your old hobbies and passions no longer have the same appeal, and none of them match the sense of security you feel when you're wrapped up tight in your bed sheets. You sleep to escape the thoughts, the fear, and the overwhelming sense of hopelessness and dread that seems to seep from your pores. But when you leave the house, you keep a smile spread on your face because you know your friends won't understand. You feel isolated, alone, like there is no one in the world you could possibly understand the darkness that you're in. God, you wish and you pray that the pain can go away, but it doesn't. It gets worse and worse and worse. And then you think to yourself, should I end it all? Eventually, that's all that you can think about. That question, and more questions follow. What does it mean to be alive? Why are you here? What's the point? And you drown in these thoughts, and you're drowning, and you feel like no one is there to save you. This year, our campus has experienced a series of conversations about the issue of mental health in our community. It's difficult for me to express how thankful I am for these conversations. Harvard can be a wonderful place, but as we all know, it can also be a pressure cooker. For many of us, it was our dream for our entire lives is to go to school here, which is why the reality of the mental health situation on this campus can be quite startling. This place can be so cold, so isolating. People are so busy all the time that it is easy to feel alone. We have had almost one suicide every year, and the anxiety on this bustling campus is almost palpable. I love Harvard, but the administration and student leadership must continue to improve the mental health condition on this campus. As a part of this process, I believe it is necessary for us to come together as a campus to talk about the times when we felt hopeless, when we felt lost. For the sake of those of us living every day in silence and suffering, it is vital for Harvard's student body to come together and say, "You are not alone." Telling these stories can be difficult in a place where prestige and face means so much. The social cost of opening up to people that you don't know seems like it would be crippling, right? I fear the stigma surrounding mental health. I'm more than my depression, yet I'm afraid that for some people, my mental health condition will be all they associate with my name. But I'm certain that our campus desperately needs people to come forward and talk about their mental health, which is why I will tell you my story. This past May, John Lee, a friend from back home, committed suicide. My third friend to die in 4 years. He and I knew each other since we were babies and grew up together, and co-captained our school's academic bowl team. Our friendship had its ups and downs, as all real friendships do, and right before I left for college, we had a falling out. Something that I will regret for the rest of my life, to be honest. For months after John Lee's suicide, I was numb. During this time period, I was able to go about my daily life as usual, Between final exams, an intense summer job, and the start of the next semester, I never took the time to process his death. Now, last semester, likely as a means to avoid coming to terms with the loss of my friend, I filled every single minute and every single second with school and extracurricular activities. I barely slept. I rarely ate and was always on my feet. I felt that as long as I stayed busy, I could outrun the memories and thoughts that threatened to drag me down into that darkness. By the middle of the semester, though, it proved too much. Like a house built upon sand, my mental health status remained unstable as long as I avoided coming to terms with the death of my friend. Depression hit me like a truckload of bricks, knocking me off my feet and hitting me while I was down again and again and again. By never taking the proper time to come to terms with John Lee's death or the death of my other two friends, I allowed what should have been a natural process of grief to transform into an overwhelming state of depression. I began to question the point of school, of my extracurriculars, even my own life. My attempts at the first 2 paragraphs of this article to convey the depths of my emotions are, to be frank, woefully insufficient. Suffice it to say, this was a dark time for me. Now, my experiences with depression made it necessary for me to take time off now. My schoolwork no longer felt relevant, as I was trying my best to stay afloat in a time when just eating and sleeping regularly felt like too much to handle. Ultimately, I decided that one way for me to overcome the overwhelmingly negative emotions that were consuming my life was to attempt to direct them into a positive outlet. I've traveled around speaking to audiences about my history of mental health and worked with the public defenders, and I worked with the public defender's office in Alabama, where I have seen firsthand the ravaging effects of mental health conditions on our nation's low-income communities. In particular, I've seen yet again that many people use their drug or substance of choice as their last refuge, something that occurs on this campus as well, if you didn't know that. My time off in Alabama has been transformative. It has allowed me to gain new perspectives on the mental health in our society and thankfully to take positive steps in coming to terms with my own demons. Now, why did I write this article? It is my sincere and honest belief that we will all encounter a situation in our lives that pushes us into an existential, that's hard for me to say, chasm, existential, I can't say it, forcing us to crawl up on our hands and knees to attempt to rediscover the light. Now I'm going to break in. I can relate to that. When you get caught up in things that are negative and the things that are just part of life, a lot of times if you don't have a firm foundation, or you lose your footing, because we're all imperfect human beings. I think he said it best. You feel like you're crawling up on your hands and knees to attempt to rediscover the light. You feel like you've fallen in a dark and bleak place and you cannot see the light. You can't reach the light. And in his words, you can't rediscover the light. I know very well that feeling. I believe this is a basic aspect of humanity, that it is natural. It is. What I fear, however, is that there are some people who feel alone in their struggle. A lot of times you do, even though on some level, you know, this is me talking, that you know that you're not alone. But it's something within us humans that we feel alone, even though we know better. I don't know. I guess that's part of the human condition. The article goes on to say, who feel like there's no hope. Okay. The power of storytelling is tremendous. It brings us together to reflect on our common humanity, something that is easy to forget in an era of smartphones and social media echo chambers. I like how you put that. I hope that the story of my experience with depression and how I almost convinced myself that I was alone, see, that's what I'm talking about, and that my life was meaningless, will help people feel comfortable talking about their own experiences. I think this is also a ploy of the adversary. He wants to convince you and get in your head that you are alone, that no one cares, that you have no hope. And only within that headspace can he work on you and get you to go into places that you were never meant to go. Okay. And you lose your purpose in God and in his son, Jesus Christ. Okay. So the article goes on to say, because the truth is we are not alone in our mental health struggle, no matter what depression tells us. It's a very effective tool. This is something that Miss Mary often brings home to me, and she comes up with different things in regards to it. And I've done some episodes on depression and how from a Christian or believer, however you want to say it, Christianity, Christian or believer view, that the adversary uses fear, he uses depression, and he uses other things to move you further and further away from the Creator. Okay? Because when you're devoid of the Creator, it leaves you open. You become a doorway to darkness, basically. When you have no hope, when you have no love, you have no compassion, you have no empathy, you're just devoid. That's when all the darkness comes through, and that's his department. So I just feel like I gotta interject that. So then the at the end of the last line for this particular article, this testimony by this young man, William F. Morris, is we are here for each other and we care and we will listen. This is Teachable Moments with April podcast, and today we're talking about September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, and this is testimony 2 from the website for hashtag BeTheOne2.com and 988 Lifeline suicide hotline. For this particular one, it is entitled "To the People Who Stuck By Me After My Suicide Attempt" by Savannah Lloyd, and it was updated July 28th, 2020. Okay, now it shows like a little thumbnail picture of her and a link to her social media websites, but I'm just going to read this very short but very powerful testimony that she has here, okay? Now, underneath this, it says themighty.com, okay? And it says, number 1, thank you for seeing me at my worst and still loving me. I know it must have been incredibly difficult to see me like that. It was hard for me too. Number 2, thank you for never giving up on me. Even when I gave up on myself, you are the reason I forced myself to stay alive after the second attempt. Number 3, thank you for sitting up with me when I felt alone. I know it was probably hard talking to me in that state, and I truly did appreciate your efforts. Number 4, thank you for not seeing me as a lost cause. I looked in the mirror and saw nothing but wasted space and rotting potential. In my eyes, I was worth nothing, but through your eyes, I started to see myself as something. Number 5, thank you for not making me talk about it before I was ready. I know you wanted to know what was going through my head when it happened, and I know it was hard to comprehend why I tried to end my life. Number 6, thank you for reminding me I am loved. The thoughts that always ran through my brain told me otherwise. Number 7, thank you for joking around with me like you always did. I needed the hint of normality in my life when everything else was a mess. Number 8, thank you for the extra hugs. I was never a big hugger, but looking back, the hugs definitely brought a smile to my face. Number 9, thank you for giving me space when I needed it. And I know it must have been hard to leave me alone when I was still in such a fragile state. You probably worried about what I might do to myself when I was alone, but I really did need my own space to heal. And number 10, thank you for loving me more than I loved myself. Your love and support pushed me to keep breathing, to keep putting one foot in the front of the other, to stay alive. I may not have loved myself enough to keep living, but my love for you kept me alive. If you or someone you know needs help, visit our suicide prevention resource page. And then it says, if you need support right now, call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or text START, all caps, to 741-741. This is Teachable Moments with April podcast, and we're talking about suicide. We're talking about September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. There is another testimony that I would like to share. It's quite extensive, so I think that what I will do is I'll just tell you where to find it. There's a website called livethroughthis.org, and it says Matt Fried. Okay, and it says Matt Fried is a suicide attempt survivor, and this is his story. I strongly invite you to go to his website and also his social media. Okay, it looks as though he has a podcast as well, and he also has something on his website that says Tell Your Story. So if you have a story that you would like to share, that's also very important. He also has a section on In Loving Memory, which I'm thinking people who maybe didn't make it, obviously, and maybe succumb to those feelings that often lead us to do the things that we do. Okay. It looks very well made. It says Matt Fries works in the food service business. He also writes about mental health, depression, and suicide. It says he was 34 when I interviewed him in Brooklyn, New York on April 21st, 2014. So if you want to read that, it's on his the main page, and an interview with Matt Fried. I'm going to read at the bottom what it says, okay, about Live Through This. Live Through This is a series of portraits and true stories of suicide attempt survivors. Its mission is to change public opinions and attitudes about suicide for the better, to reduce prejudice and discrimination against those who attempt suicide and their survivors, and to provide comfort to those experiencing feelings of suicide by letting them know that they're not alone. So you see that same theme here of what leads people ultimately. There are many, many reasons, but that one seems to stand true, is feeling like you're alone. And tomorrow is possible that clicks into hopelessness or lack of hope, to give insight to those who have trouble understanding the whole thing. Because I've talked to people, and this is just me, this is not on the page, and a lot of people will tell you they've never had those thoughts. They've never had those thoughts. And I'm not trying to say anything about people, I don't know everything. I'm imperfect. But I'm not so sure about that. I'm a little skeptical. I think that maybe they're just not in touch with it, or they're a bit of denial. I think at some point in everyone's life, and some people more than one time, more than twice, more than 3 times, but I do think that every living being, if they're allowed to live a certain amount of time, they've had the feeling that they are alone and that they lack hope. Some type of circumstance, something has happened, and they just can't see. They just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Even if you are filled with faith, you have moments in which you're just like, you're unsure. I think it's part of the human condition. That's just my thoughts. People may not agree with me, but I am skeptical. I may not speak on it when people say things. They'll say, oh, I've never thought of that, or I don't know why they did that, or so forth and so on. But I think if we're really honest and we really think about it, I think certain people may be more extensive in their thoughts, and how many times they fall short in that way. Not to mean by falling short that they're less than other people, but I think there are some people that they're just have certain things in their character and certain things in their personality that make them susceptible, so to speak. We all have our flaws, and we have things about us. Flaws is not the right word, because to me it means deficiencies. In a negative way. I don't mean it in a negative way, but it's something that is a challenge. Maybe that's a better word. And if people are honest, we've all had dark thoughts. We've all had dark thoughts, and we wonder why. Why should I continue? Why should I go on? And I think once you embrace that and you acknowledge that, then you can move forward. Those are just my personal thoughts. You may not agree, and I respect that. We are not going to think the same. We're not going to feel the same about certain things, and I respect that. I'm not a person that gets angry right away when someone has a different standpoint than myself. So that's my 2 cents. Okay, so on here it says also it's catharsis to those who have lost a loved one, okay, and to be used as a teaching tool for clinicians in training or anyone else who may benefit from a deeper understanding of first-person experiences with suicide. Then it goes on to say like a little poem or a little something, and I want to share it with you. It's more toward the bottom of his page, and it says, please stay. If you're hurting, afraid, or need someone to talk to, please reach out to any one of the resources below. Someone will reach back. You are so deeply valued. Okay, so you kind of question your value as well. So incomprehensibly loved. Today I'm like tongue-tied. Even when you can't feel it. okay? And you are so worth your life, okay? Life is a gift and God gave it to you. Those are my words. It's not on his page. You can't see it when you're in that dark place, but it is so true, okay? Also, he has some resources, of course, that says you can reach, and it talks about 988, Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, by dialing 988. It also has Trans Lifeline, which is at 877-565-8860, which is in the U.S. If you're in Canada, for Trans Lifeline, call 877-330-6366. Okay, if you're in Canada. Then it gives the Trevor Project, which is 866-488-7386. Okay, and then it also says if you'd like to talk to a peer, you can go to warmline.org. Okay, and it contains links to warm lines in every state. All right. Yeah, that's basically what I would like to say from his particular webpage. And it says, Live Through This is dedicated to the lives of so many friends and family members who were lost to suicide over the years, okay? If you would like to add to the name, and you can also add a name of a loved one to a list that they have on this particular web page. And it says you can add to the list. And also he says, please email me, okay? So we got stories. We got a store. If you'd like to donate, you got that too. You can contact him, like I said. You can share your own personal story because we learn from each other. There's also a campaign that's #StayCampaign, okay? By sharing a picture of you in your Live Through This gear. Oh, okay. And you can subscribe. I would. It looks pretty solid. I haven't gone through everything, but just at first glance, it looks pretty solid website. And it looks like it has a very intriguing testimony by this young man, Matt Fried. So check it out. If you do, before I post anything as a follow-up, feel free to contact me and let me know what you liked the best or what stood out to you. You were just listening to Teachable Moments with April podcast. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode. We invite you to stay connected with us on the other social media platforms of ours, which is TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube. Also, we'd like to invite you to check out our official podcast landing page on podpage.com/teachable moments with April to see all our content in one place and leave personal messages, feedback, and more.